You see him on the news.
CNN.com contributor, Dean Obadala. So, Dean...
Watch him at comedy clubs.
When I say Mecca, do you think of a holy place or an urban clothing line?
Read his articles. And you hear him on the radio. The Dean Obadala Show is on live right here on SiriusXM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters of the resistance. It's Monday, April 15th. It is tax day. Would be so great if Donald Trump were to release his taxes today, wouldn't it? I mean, that would make sense. It is tax day, but we're never going to see that because we are simply plebes and servants in the world of Donald Trump, who's the king, and we don't deserve that kind of stuff to know the transparency of how he's making money and where he's conflicted. You would think you'd want to know that. You would think Republicans want to know that, but they don't want to do that. So this weekend, me and Matt, there goes Matt now walking. If you're on Facebook.com/Dean of Radio, you can see him. We spent the weekend in New Hampshire. No, it wasn't a lovely romantic getaway. We were working. And I sat down for 10 minutes with Senator Liz Warren. You'll hear that later in the show. We went to a couple of her events. We spent several hours following her around in a non-stalky way. Went to 2 different events, spoke to a lot of voters up there. And then yesterday I moderated a town hall with John Delaney, who is one of the 2020 Democratic candidates. And it was really eye-opening and interesting. I learned a lot about New Hampshire. I met some listeners. Lori and Paul were up there and a few others. And what was remarkable to me, my biggest takeaway is when you see 300 people at an event or 400 people at a candidate's event during the early part of this primary season, they're not all supporting that candidate. I assume because we went to the Liz Warren event and she's great. And John Delaney's really nice too. And Liz Warren, we sat down for like 10 minutes and it was great chatting with her. So we go to her event right there in the same venue, 350 people, packed. It's like a pep rally. They're going crazy for everything she says. But then we interview about 10 people afterwards. Not one is committed to Warren and they're not against Warren. In New Hampshire, they take choosing a candidate more serious than I've ever seen in my entire life. They literally feel an obligation to vet the candidates for the rest of us. And countless times I heard them say, we don't support someone till we've met them 3 or 4 times because it's a relatively small state, a little over 1 million people. I have more in my apartment building and they are there. They have candidates come to their home. I mean, we went to the Liz Warren event with 350 people. Then we went to one where she was talking to 50 people. And John Delaney had about 35, 40 people. So if you've never been to a town hall in New Hampshire with John Delaney in the third hour tonight, you're going to hear truly what it's like. I mean, I just asked a few questions. I moderated a teeny bit of the Q&A part, but we wanted it to be organic so you can hear what's going on up there. And I really liked it. We're going to go back up there. Last night, by the way, was the Game of Thrones premiere. I don't know if anyone watched it. I'm not watching the Game of Thrones. I'm just waiting for Bill Barr's 4-page summary that clears the Night King of any wrongdoing because, let's be honest, Bill Barr, if you're the Night King and you've got that kind of frozen dragon, you want Bill Barr to write the report to clear you. And by the way, today's a horrible, horrible fire in the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. I'm sure you've seen it if you're seen the news. It's been covered all day, and I can say as a person of faith, it's heartbreaking to see any place of worship destroyed. And what's good, though, is while the spire fell, which is painful to see, the police are saying now that the main part of the towers and the cathedral appear to be safe. So they were doing renovations already, and we don't know how the fire started. The speculations is that it had to do with the renovations. It was going on. The fire didn't start in the middle of the night, it started in the middle of the afternoon. On a Monday. But it doesn't stop those on Fox News, though. 2 guests already on Fox News have floated that somehow Muslims were involved in burning down the church. And I'm not surprised. What I do like is that both Shep Smith and Neil Cavuto shut down both of those people, 2 different guests saying it. And that's pretty impressive. Tucker Carlson would not shut them down. Sean Hannity would not shut them down. Laura Ingraham would not shut them down. But Neil Cavuto and Shep Smith, and Shep Smith especially being a journalist, said no to that. I think it's interesting that the right-wingers online and everything, of course, are trying to say this is a Muslim terrorist attack on a beautiful church. That's completely inconsistent with Islam. The people of the book, Jews and Christians, are people that we share so much commonality. Would someone in ISIS attack a place of worship? Sure. Would any mainstream normal Muslim who's not a radical ISIS person? No. However, I thought this was a good day, considering there's a Catholic church that burned down, for Donald Trump and Mike Pence, who tweeted about the fire, to denounce Dr. Robert Jeffers. Jeffers is a Southern Baptist who's part of their inner sanctum of advisors. He's one of their faith advisors. He goes to the White House all the time. He's a Fox News regular. Well, Reverend Jeffers has said in the past, because he's a right-wing evangelical and they don't like Catholics, that's part of they hate Muslims, but they've long disliked Catholics. And he has called Catholicism, quote, a cult-like pagan religion. And he said the success of the religion is due to the, quote, the genius of Satan. And he's talked about that it's based on a Babylonian cult system. That is the man who is part of Donald Trump's inner circle, demonizing Catholics like that. And I'm aware of their hate of Catholics. My mom's Catholic, and I was raised with both Islam and Catholicism. And right-wing, white, not black, white Christian evangelicals have long disliked Catholics, long disliked Muslims, long disliked Mormons, and for a long time were vilely anti-Semitic. Now they've tampered that down because in their view, Jesus only returns if Israel is safe. Doesn't mean they like Jews. They like Jesus a lot to the point where everyone else can be sacrificed. So why not today, Donald Trump and Mike Pence? I tweeted, with this fire going on and you're talking about it, why not denounce Reverend Jeffers and say there's no place for anti-Catholicism in our inner circle of faith leaders? Seems pretty simple, right? And I wish the media would cover this more because they barely cover the anti-Muslim stuff, but anti-Catholicism, we're talking about 20-25% of the country is Catholic. They should know that the inner circle, Trump's inner circle, includes a man who views Catholicism as, quote, the genius of Satan and a cult-like pagan religion. That should upset everyone as a Catholic, that Trump is, even if you're a right-wing Trumper, you should say, get rid of this guy. Why do you have this guy around you who's like that? And I want to talk about something else, of course, that deals with the news over the weekend. On Friday, Donald Trump, actually just during our show, tweeted out a video of Representative Ilhan Omar giving a speech and then intercut footage of the horrific attack on the World Trade Center. And for someone who witnessed that attack firsthand in Lower Manhattan, who stood on the corner of 8th Street and 6th Avenue and watched the building collapse and literally saw people jumping to their death, it's horrific for Donald Trump to use the victims of 9/11 to score a political point. That is beyond anything. You can criticize Congressman Omar on her choice of words if you want to. I don't know what kind of words. To me, the right wing wants Congressman Omar just to speak the words they want. And if she deviates from the script, they're going to attack her because this was completely made up, contrived controversy about Congressman Omar. But here's the point. I was happy by the Democrats who spoke out. And not all spoke out as swiftly as we wanted, but many spoke out swiftly. Senator Warren, we interviewed her Saturday, was very saying Republicans who are silent are complicit. You'll hear that in the next hour when we play that. She had a great tweet, Senator Warren, saying that Trump was inciting violence against a sitting congresswoman and an entire group of Americans based on their religion. She's absolutely right. Other Democrats representing a cross-section of the Democratic Party of visible leaders came out very strongly standing with Congressman Omar. People like Ayanna Pressley and Joe Kennedy and Beto O'Rourke, Stacey Abrams. Nancy Pelosi was all right. Chuck Schumer apparently still has not said anything, and that's troubling. And Chuck Schumer gets increasingly troubling for my community as time goes on. And these Democrats were 100% correct. Trump's vile and inflammatory tweet would spur more death threats against Omar. And they were saying that Friday night. Well, last night, Congressman Omar put out a statement, which was backed up by Nancy Pelosi, that indeed Congressman Omar has been subjected to more death threats by people citing Trump and that video. In her statement, she wrote, "Since the president's tweet Friday, I've experienced an increase in direct threats in my life, many directly referencing or replying to the president's video." So we have this happen. All these Democrats come out over the weekend saying it's horrible. Congressman Omar last night saying, I have an increase in death threats against me. You have Nancy Pelosi saying we have the Capitol Police now guarding Congressman Omar. And what does Trump do today? What does Donald Trump do today in the midst of this? He tweets again, ginning up hate of Congresswoman Omar. He tweets about her that she has made, quote, ungrateful U.S. hate statements, H-A-T, hate, all in caps. And look, it's clear Donald Trump wants violence. That's beyond speculation. And you know it. I don't need to play the clips from 2016 where Donald Trump at his rally said things like, if you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? And later, when asked about violence at his rallies, he doubled down, saying things like, the audience hit back. That's what we need a little bit more of. And even as the guy in the White House, he's continued. Just a few months ago in the midterms, he was in campaigning in Montana, where a congressman there, Greg Gianforte, had body slammed a reporter for asking a tough question of him a few months before. And there's Donald Trump praising him for body slamming, acting out the body slam and saying, quote, he's my guy. When you combine Donald Trump's call for violence together with his demonization of Muslims, it's a perfect storm to incite people to attack Muslims. In fact, here, let's play a little. Here is Donald, just to remind you, there's a few clips of Donald Trump and his comments about Muslims during the 2016 campaign.
I think Islam hates us. There's something there that there's a tremendous hatred there. I want surveillance of these people. I want surveillance if we have to, and I don't care. Are you ready for this, folks? Are you ready? Oh, they're going to make it such a big deal. They're going to make it so big. He said something so politically incorrect. That's why we're going to hell, because we're so politically incorrect. Such a big deal. Such a big deal. I want surveillance of certain mosques, okay? Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
So Donald Trump demonizing Muslims has been part and parcel of his campaign. It's been right up there with demonizing Mexicans and immigrants in general. And 65% of GOP primary voters supported Donald Trump's complete ban on Muslims coming to this country. You know, the people who pretend that they care about religious liberty, when polls show they only care about it for their own faith, not for Jews and not for Muslims. They only care about their own sect of Christianity. We're no problem with this. And it's not speculation that Donald Trump's words have been connected to violence and that supporters of him, proud supporters, have committed acts of violence against Muslims, either citing Trump or praising Trump. In fact, you don't have to look any further than just a little over a week ago. A self-professed Trump supporter was arrested. A guy named Patrick Carlinio was arrested for calling Congressman Omar's office and saying, "I'll put a bullet in her effing head." And when he was questioned by the police, he bragged that he loved Trump and viewed himself as a patriot. And the list of self-professed Trump supporters who've plotted to kill Muslims in this country goes on and on and on. In January, a white supremacist Trump fan plotted with 3 other young men. They were arrested in upstate New York. They were going to Islamabad, New York, which is a primarily African-American Muslim community. And as the police chief said, if they had carried out this plot, people would have died. You might see a pattern here. They want to kill black Muslims first and foremost. So there's a lot going on. It's white supremacy intersecting with anti-Muslim bigotry. And that's part of the reason. Trump's base doesn't like black people much. They can tolerate them at best, but a lot of them don't like them. Not saying all, just saying some. In January, nothing happened. Attorneys representing 3 white supremacists who were on trial for what? For plotting to kill Muslims in Kansas. And you want to guess what kind of community of Muslims they were? They were Somali Muslims. So they were black Muslims. And the lawyer, during sentencing, because they were convicted, argued that Trump had in essence radicalized their clients with his inflammatory rhetoric. He literally blamed Trump for radicalizing his clients. And one of the lead guys, the mastermind, was described as an early and avid supporter of Trump. He was recorded by the FBI speaking of dipping bullets in pig's blood before shooting the Muslims. And if that sounds vaguely familiar, that's because during the campaign, Donald Trump kept telling this debunked tale of General John Pershing, who he said had dipped bullets in pig's blood before he shot Muslims who were terrorists. All 3 of these white supremacist Trump supporters, and they're all self-avowed Trump supporters, got 25 years in prison to life. In August 2017, in the Islamic Center in Bloomington, Minnesota, which serves what kind of community you think of Muslims? Somali Muslims, again, black Muslims. You're seeing what's going on here. They're really targeting black Muslims. And this mosque was firebombed by 3 men. The police noted that the mastermind of the attack, a man named Michael Harry, was a self-professed Trump supporter and a white supremacist. And in their criminal complaint, it says they wanted to scare Muslims out of the country and make it clear, hey, you're not welcome here and get the F out. That was their goal. And during the time of Trump, since his campaign through today, we've seen an uptick in anti-Muslim hate crimes. We've seen mosques, several mosques, defaced with the word Trump, like the word Trump is a modern-day swastika to them. That's what it is in their mind. They're using it as a symbol of hate. We've had people, Muslims with hijab women, being attacked. We had in January 2017, while it didn't happen in our country, it happened in Quebec, a man who was obsessed with Trump, and that's the term of the prosecutors, because they saw that this guy had Googled and read things about Trump in the weeks leading up to his attack in a mosque. He walked into a mosque in January 2017 in Quebec and killed 6 Muslims praying and injured scores others. I myself have been subject to death threats by self-professed Trump supporters who are white supremacists at the Daily Stormer. Something I've talked about on the show before. And I'm suing them in federal court, and any day now we'll probably get our judgment because they didn't answer, and because I'm not going to be silent. And, you know, look, there are people, if you go in the media, sometimes I raise these issues, and journalists go, well, you can't prove causation, can you? I cannot prove it in the sense of Trump said, go do this, and someone did that. What I can say is I can rely on a report done in the UK by the University of Warwick, which did a remarkable report last year, which showed there was an uptick in anti-Muslim violence in America when Trump demonized Muslims by Twitter. And they had a correlation which they cannot explain any other way than by Trump's tweets and what was going on. And they said in the report, quote, Trump's tweets themselves contribute to a climate that enables hate crimes. Look, I'm not going to be irresponsible and say Trump is like an ISIS recruiter. I thought about it. That's unfair. And here's why. ISIS recruiters tell people to join ISIS and then give them the plans and even the weapons to commit horrific acts. Donald Trump doesn't do that. What he does is he takes people to the doorstep of violence. He demonizes Muslims. He calls for violence at his rallies. He praises and celebrates those who commit violence. And then he takes you to the doorstep. And it's up to you to take that next step. And he knows he's not going to go to jail because under our laws, if you take someone to the doorstep of violence, you're not going to be prosecuted. You must take that next act, that overt act, to be part of a conspiracy, giving them a weapon, saying, like today, him calling Congresswoman Omar un-American and hates America. He knows in the climate we are, where she got death threats, it's going to increase the death threats. She's an acceptable loss to Donald Trump. I'm an acceptable loss. Every Muslim in this country, every Latino immigrant, every black person, if you're not in Trump's base, you're an acceptable loss, whoever you are. If you're a white liberal, you're an acceptable loss. You know that. And here's the thing. We're going into the 2020 campaign. And here's my prediction. I want everyone to remember this and call me out. I could be wrong. But here's what I think we're going to see between now and November 3rd, 2020. Donald Trump calling for a ban on Muslims serving in our government. And you might say, that's ridiculous. It's unconstitutional. That's crazy. Well, 2 things. First of all, did you ever expect to see a leading candidate for office in America, for president, say, I want a total complete shutdown on Muslims entering this country? I would imagine no one thought, like a fringe person, but not a mainstream person. But Trump didn't come up with that on his own. That already was out there. I've written about it. There's right-wing actors, fringe people, anti-Muslim bigots calling for that. Trump just parroted that. Well, over the last year, and especially in the last month, these right-wing fringe people who are actually tied to Trump, people like Frank Gaffney and Laura Loomer and others, have called for Muslims not to be allowed to serve in our military, in our government. I expect Trump at some point to give red meat to that part of his base, to at least raise it in a tweet, like maybe Muslims shouldn't serve in our government anymore. And yes, it's unconstitutional. You can't have a religious test, but it doesn't matter. He's giving red meat to a base. He's also going to inspire hate crimes. Politicians, their biggest thing is not legislating. It's inspiring good, inspiring bad, inspiring really ugly. And in the case of Donald Trump, it's really, really ugly. So this is where we are. I tell you this, it's April 15, 2019, between now and November 3rd, 2020. At some point, Donald Trump will at least suggest that Muslims should not serve in the government, not be allowed. And his base will cheer. Just like 65% of them, 65% supported a total ban on Muslims coming to this country. How many of them have you said we should deport all Muslims? What do you think the number would be? We're speculating. I'm going to say fair to say over 50%. This is where we are. This is where my community is. And I will tell you this, while it's emotionally challenging, I was on MSNBC, and I can feel the emotion in me when we were talking about this on Saturday. I'm more optimistic than I was a few years ago because my fellow Americans have elected 2 Muslim women to Congress in districts that are not Muslim-dominated districts at all. Neither one. Rashida Tlaib district is primarily African-American, and Congressman Ilhan Omar is primarily a white liberal district. So these are not Muslim districts. There are other districts that have more of a bigger Muslim population, and one day I imagine some Muslims will be elected there. I see more Muslims than ever wanting to get involved in the politics. The 2018 cycle was more than ever. I think we're going to see more and more in 2020. And that's going to freak out the bigots. And that's good. They should be worried. They should be concerned. All their worst nightmares are not going to come true. We're not going to have Sharia law or anything like that. What we're going to have is diversity that represents America. That's not white. It's not right-wing Christian. It's not always straight. And they hate all of that. So it's up to us to make sure we elect people that look like America. So let's take a break. I'd love to hear from you. I mean, you're my guest at the top of the hour. Then we got some great pre-tapes coming up. The hour with Senator Liz Warren, and then the hour with former Congressman John Delaney, both in New Hampshire. But I want to hear from you. 866-997-4748. Be right back after this.
The Dean Obeidallah Show.
I think Trump clips that they play on the media should come with a health warning saying that if you watch this,